This video will cover Burkitt lymphoma and Burkitt-like lymphoma. Our anchor to Burkitt lymphoma is right here in the middle of the image. It's a green dog barking. Doesn't the word barking sound like Burkitt? And since he's a green dog, we'll remember lymphoma because lymph things are normally represented in green. This one will be a bit longer, but tough it out with me. It's going to be worth it. Let's start by first recognizing that there are three clinical pathologic types of Burkitt: African, Western, and immunodeficiency associated. These are represented on the right, left, and center of the image respectively. But don't worry, we're going to cover each one in detail now, starting from the left with the Western type. Western Burkitt lymphoma is usually seen in children and young adults, which is why our character is of course a child. It is not commonly associated with EBV, which is why our character understandably looks a bit sad. They canceled episode 5 of the show he had been waiting to watch. Episode 5, as in other videos, represents EBV, since if you shorten the word episode, you get EP, and if you write the number 5 in Roman numerals, you get the letter V. So put those together and it spells out EPV, which is so similar to EBV. But in this case, since the episode was canceled, we'll remember that there usually is not an association with EBV. Let's move to the center of the image and talk about the immunodeficiency associated type now. As in other videos, HIV is represented by a hoverboard, since if you were to shorten hoverboard or abbreviate it, you could kind of get to HIV. So of course, HIV is often the immunodeficiency seen in this type. Now let's go to the right and talk about the African type. This type is also most common in children, which is why the character here is also a child. The classic scenario is a child with a jaw mass, which is why this character here is enjoying a jawbreaker candy. This type is strongly associated with EBV, which is why this lucky boy actually gets to watch episode 5 of his show, which was not canceled. The last thing to remember about this type is that Plasmodium falciparum infection is a risk factor for it. Plasmodium falciparum is represented by the alien with a plasma gun in his show. The plasma gun represents Plasmodium, and the fact that it's an alien holding it will remind us of falciparum, because some people would say aliens are false, and false sounds like falciparum. I want to believe they visit us, but man, these extraterrestrials need to step it up already and give us more signs. Okay, now let's talk about characteristics of Burkitt lymphoma, which are true for all types. Let's start with the easiest one, which is the beautiful starry sky. This pattern is caused by all the tingible body macrophages scattered amongst the lymphoma cells. The classic morphology is a diffuse proliferation of intermediate-sized monomorphic cells. Intermediate-sized monomorphic cells are represented by this monk here with medium size written on his clothes. Monk sort of sounds like mono, and remember that monks can truly morph you into whatever you'd like, so that's going to help us remember the morphic part of monomorphic. Next, the typical morphology seen on peripheral blood smear and cytology preps is a deeply basophilic and vacuolated cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is represented by this plasma gun here. The fact that it's shooting dark blue plasma with bubbles represents the deeply basophilic and vacuolated cytoplasm. Remember, this applies to peripheral blood smear and cytology preps. This lymphoma characteristically has very high Ki-67, usually positive in more than 99% of cells. Another name for Ki-67 is MIB1. And remember the Men in Black movie and how they abbreviated it to MIB or MIB? Well, exactly, that is why these two guys are here. CD10 is characteristically positive and is represented, as in other videos, by this den full of CDs, since den sounds like 10. If you look closely at their belts, you'll see the buckles are made of sticks. Buckle represents BCL, and the fact that they are made of sticks represents the number 6, which sounds similar. Burkitt lymphoma characteristically is BCL6 positive. What happens to their shoes? For us, it works out because Burkitt lymphoma is characteristically BCL2 negative. And since the number 2 sounds like shoes, we'll remember this fact. Burkitt lymphoma is positive for MYC gene rearrangement as a result of MYC-IgH fusion by a translocation of chromosomes 8 and 14. Chromosomes 8 and 14 are represented by this gate guarding this fortune. Gate sounds like the number 8, and fortune sounds like the number 14. To remember that the fusion involves the MYC and IgH genes, take a look at the agent's hat. It's a Nickelodeon hat. Nickelodeon is often shortened to Nick, which sounds a lot like Mick. And look at his partner with a really heavy chain. Of course, that heavy chain represents the IgH gene. Okay, we've reached the last point to remember, which is Burkitt-like lymphoma. This lymphoma resembles Burkitt but lacks MYC gene rearrangement. This is represented by this green cat also wearing an orange hat, but instead of a Nickelodeon logo, it has a question mark. I chose a green cat because a green dog is the symbol for Burkitt for us, so I thought it would only be fitting to use a green cat for Burkitt-like. Burkitt-like lymphoma shows chromosome 11q alteration, and this is represented by the cat's t-shirt, which he must have gotten as merch from that famous gas station. The name of the gas station kind of sounds like the number 11. Additionally, this cat is pretty cute, so you can remember 11q since the letter Q sounds like cute.